Hi, my name is Ashley, and I have a story that I've been meaning to share for a while that I feel like it's now time to put it out there. So I'm a born and raised member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or in pop culture terms, LDS or Mormon. I don't like the Mormon term, I never have, and I'm just going to refer to the church as the LDS Church for time's sake. So my story begins when I was about 6 years old. I was raped by a neighbor boy. His name is Andrew, and he lived 2 or 3 doors down from where we lived in West Jordan, Utah. The details that I remember about my rape are very limited. I personally believe that I suffer from dissociative amnesia, where I have gaps of time missing, and I'm not talking days or weeks, I'm talking years. All I can tell you is I know that it happened twice. I only remember parts of the first time. I don't remember the full thing. I know he was not violent with me, so I was not physically harmed and, like I wasn't beat up or anything. But, he was telling me what to do. I know I was scared, and I didn't know what was happening. This also took place outside of my home in my backyard, and there was no one there to do anything. I don't remember calling out for help or anything. I just remembered what happened was bad, but I thought it was me doing something bad because I had agreed to doing something when he really was talking me to doing something I wasn't comfortable with, and I was a very gullible little kid. Obviously what happened to me was very traumatic, but my main trauma honestly stems from the teachings of sex in the LDS Church than what actually happened to me. That doesn't make much sense. Let me explain. So my rape trauma actually really comes from the fact that I was never taught about rape and inappropriate sexual interactions, and obviously that's something the church isn't going to teach about. Growing up, we are taught that sex outside of a committed relationship in the bonds of marriage, whether civil or sealed in the temple, is wrong, and it's a sin. In my young, impressionable mind, I thought I had committed a sin. I had had sex, and my belief was that if my parents knew what I did, I would be kicked out of my home. And for some reason, that was my logic as a 6-year-old. The burden I was carrying was not mine to bear in the sense that I believed that I had committed a sin. The burden I was carrying is that I was raped and I had no one to talk to about it for 6 years. The only reason I came forward about what had happened to me or what I had done is because at 12 years old, I had the opportunity to go through the temple and do baptisms for the dead. And in my mind, I wasn't worthy to do baptisms for the dead because of this sin I had committed. And when I finally told my mom about it, I felt ashamed. I didn't make eye contact with her. I looked down the whole time. I was crying, something I don't do. I'm not a crier. And I told her pretty much along the lines of, if you hate me now, I would understand. If you want me to be homeless, leave, run away, I already have a bag packed. And my mom was so mortified that I thought she was going to hate me that she just cried with me, because that obviously was not the case. If I had been informed of inappropriate sexual advances from other people and been more empowered about my body, I fully believe that I would have come forward much sooner about what had happened to me. Once I realized that there was a difference between sex and rape, I felt empowered to know the difference, and I have become a very outspoken person ever since. I don't feel like it's the church's place to teach about rape, molestation, inappropriate sexual touch, talk, the like. But from my own personal experience, I can understand why a religious organization would encourage young people to wait until they are married to have sex with their husband or wife. Most kids in my generation, and yes, I'm a millennial, learned about sex through their peers, through porn, through self-exploration. It should come from parents. It shouldn't come from the church. It shouldn't come from school. And if parents feel like they aren't mature enough to have sexual conversations with their kids in age-appropriate manners, then they probably should have rethought having kids. Because if you can have sex but can't talk about it, are you really ready to have a family? Just my 2 cents. Part of the reason why how sex culture is taught within the church, from what I understand, there isn't an exact manual of how to teach sex to members of the church. But kids also need to be prepared in case bad things do happen, and if they don't know, they're just going to shut down. We need to protect future generations from inappropriate teachings that can be taught in your kids' classrooms that you might not even know about. I can't remember for sure if this happened in any classrooms I had been in, whether in school or at church, but I know it's a very common lesson that sexual purity or virtue is like unto a piece of gum, that once it's been chewed, it's no longer desirable. This is a very false and incorrect teaching, and things taught like that need to stop. A better analogy would be to take like a $20 bill that's nice, new, crisp. Obviously it looks great, right? But if you crumple it up, you tear it, spit on it, whatever, it still holds its value. A person's value does not change simply because something bad happened to them. And maybe it's not necessarily something bad happened, like rape or molestation, for example, but teenagers have raging hormones that they don't know what to do with, and if they're not taught properly how to keep their emotions and their hormones in check, or if they're not taught about sexual health at home, both positively and negatively, they're going to go out and do things, and they might feel shame afterwards, and that can take a long-term effect on their sexual relationships with someone that's actually important to them in the future, like a husband or a wife. So we need to start taking better care of how we approach these very sensitive but important topics with our youth and even little kids. If we don't take charge of how we learn things and teach those things, we're going to just have more wounded and traumatized adults in the future, and that doesn't help anybody. So what I'm really saying is, in order to prevent future shame and trauma in today's generation of children and future generations of children, we need to do ourselves a favor and educate ourselves on proper sexual health and know the difference between consent and non-consenting, rape culture, how porn fuels sex trafficking and rape culture, and even encourages demeaning women, young children, and minorities. And the place that this needs to take place is in our homes. It's not up to the government, it's not up to public schools, it's not even up to organized religions to tackle these tough subjects. We need to handle these things at home, because if we don't have a safe space that kids can go to, especially to their parents, with open communication and without fear that they're going to be judged, ridiculed, yelled at, whatever, we're just going to have more problems in the future, and that's what we're trying to avoid, especially with all the things happening today. So I just implore you, please, please teach your kids age-appropriate sexual health, because it will protect them and it will help you have a better relationship with your kids.